Good morning, everybody. This is John Self, and we'll be live with you with Career Live and our Ask the Recruiter Your Community Question feature in about 3 minutes. Stay tuned. Good morning, everybody. This is John Self, and we'll be live with you with Career Live and our Ask the Good morning, everybody. I'm John Self, and welcome to Your Career Questions. Ask the Recruiter, Career Live. We're delighted to have you with us today. Thank you for being with us, and we hope that we can answer your questions today. And just drop them in the chat box if you're on YouTube. I think LinkedIn reaches over as well. We run from a studio in Tyler, using Restream, an Austin-based streaming company, great company with a good product, and really delighted to be affiliated with them. So we're just relaunching our sort of fall schedule. We did this last week, and we're going to try to keep this going every Friday morning. Now, if you're a little modest and you don't want to submit questions live where your name might be seen, or at least your first name, you can submit them to us in advance at info@johngself.com or at john@johngself.com, and we'll take your questions. We won't mention your last name. If you're from a big city, we may mention your first name and city. If it's a smaller city, not a chance. Okay, we believe in sort of the confidentiality of the process, and we want you to feel free to ask questions, because that's really important. I found in my 27 years of executive recruiting all over the world that people had tons of questions about career management, but they were too embarrassed to ask. They either felt like it would be a stupid question, or that maybe somehow somebody might find out that they were asking questions about recruiting. So please rest assured, we'll do everything we can to protect your confidentiality, and we want to encourage you every Friday morning to ask your questions, okay? And today we're going to start off with a question we were asked last night. We do a TikTok. I know, I'm an old guy, but I have a big TikTok following, and we did a TikTok live your career questions last night. And one of them I thought was really pretty good, because a lot of people I found really struggle with this issue. They just don't understand how the process works. So what is a common mistake that people make in dealing with recruiters? The biggest mistake is the recruiter is not your friend. Now, in real life, they may be your friend, but in the search, they're not. The recruiter's loyalty is to the client and the fee. It's a pretty tough business, especially if it's contingency recruiting. And so, a lot of firms put a lot of pressure on their partners to bring in new business and to get the business they have brought in done in a hurry, in a way that makes the client happy, and they can move on to other projects. And recruiters guard their clients jealously. It's all about relationships. And so they don't want any interlopers. And if you're a friend with a recruiter and you're not really ideal, the recruiter's not going to present you to the client if they're ethical, if you're not qualified, because they realize that could impede the relationship. I know a big name hotshot recruiter in Texas who once knew this guy in a bigger Central Texas hospital, who was kind of pushed out because he was not politically savvy, and it was a tough environment. And so he dropped him in the search as kind of a, quote, filler up in a hospital in Northeast Texas, and the guy got the job. And the guy was a disaster. He was gone within 2 years. So, the recruiters are very jealous about their relationships with the client, and they are certainly very jealous regarding their standing in the community. Now, if you know a recruiter, if you're friends outside the recruiting, learn how to leverage that, but let's set some boundaries, okay? The leverage you have is when you talk to that person, you're going to feel comfortable, self-aware. That's it. That's all the leverage you get. Because the minute you start thinking that you can influence them to include you in the search because you're friends, not because you're the best qualified candidate, you're lost. Okay, so don't do that. Don't make that assumption. If you are friends, use that to kind of help you just become relaxed and just let it hang out. Just be prepared and really try to impress. So that's, how you work with recruiters. Let me back up a little bit and share with you a couple of things that a lot of people also misunderstand. If the supervisor, hourly level, management level, or lower level management workers, the recruiters are either in-house or they're are what we call agency recruiters, contingency recruiters. And a contingency recruiter is sort of like a real estate agent. They call around looking for job orders to fill. If they fill the job order, they get a commission. If they don't fill the job order, all that effort was for naught. Most of those recruiters charge anywhere from 20 to 30% of your first year cash compensation. And so they are not a contingency recruiter, it's all about speed. It's all about getting you in first before another recruiter claims your name. And so it's really a big press. So you won't have an in-depth interview. I saw this time after time. We would get a submission from a contingency recruiter, and the notes consisted of great personality. So when you are talking to a recruiter, ask what kind they are. Okay, that's very helpful. If they're a contingency recruiter, and there are some very, very good contingency recruiters, please understand their job is to close the deal. And if that means they're not going to necessarily tell you everything you might want to know, you have to understand they're under a lot of pressure to close deals. If they don't, they're fired. So you just have to understand that dynamic there. Now, at the senior level, VP generally up to the C-suite, you're going to be dealing more with retained recruiters. And that's what I was, a retained recruiter. And basically how that works is we sign a contract to do a search. We get usually a third of the fee up front, and the fee can run anywhere from 25 to 35% of total cash compensation in the first year. That includes your bonus, okay? And the organization pays both of those recruiters. You're not obligated. You are never obligated to pay a recruiter. If somebody's asking you to pay them to place you, don't do it, because that's placement, and you're typically, those people are supposed to be licensed with the state. Most are not. So just be very sensitive to that. Now, the retained recruiter is going to spend time on site, usually a day or two. If it's a really big complex case, I did one in Buffalo, New York for a big academic county-owned medical center and spent 7 days there because it was just such a mess, so complex, with a fairly new board, a fairly new structure, highly political, and unions wall to wall. So I spent about 7 days there talking to union reps, talking to board members, talking to the remaining executives that were on the team. And we had a very, very successful search. As a matter of fact, in 27 years, all of my CEO searches, I never had a mishire. So yeah, I wish it had been all of my searches. I had about 12 over a 27-year period that I had to go back and replace people because the match wasn't right. And it's a very difficult, recruiting is not an exact science. I have an approach as a recruiter, very detailed, full disclosure to the client and full disclosure to the candidate. So that's kind of how the recruiters work. So keep that in mind. The recruiter is not your friend. So don't talk to them like a friend, because that you may say something that may cause a negative within the recruiter's mind or their associate's mind. And so you just have to be really careful. Forget that their friendship is there, except you know them, use that to boost your confidence, but then draw the line. Don't start expecting anything different from the recruiter, okay? It's understandable. They're not going to be your friend. They owe their loyalty during their search to the client and to their fee. Okay, let's move on. Let's see. John, we hear a lot of information today about ageism and other forms of discrimination. Please talk to us about this issue and what we can do about it. Well, let me tell you something. There is a lot of discrimination. I've seen it time and time again. I've heard it. I've tried to mitigate it. There's only been about 1 or 2 clients in 27 years that I just said, look, I'm not the right guy to do this search, because it was really pretty racial discrimination. I just didn't want any part of it. So let me tell you what you're dealing with today. First of all, at the executive and the senior level positions, probably senior manager up to the CEO, there are more people looking for jobs than there are actually jobs in that space. Now, everybody says, but yeah, we created 255,000 or 270,000 jobs last month. What the hell are you talking about? What I'm talking about is it's at the senior level, we have what is called a white collar recession. And that white collar recession means that there are fewer jobs today for the people looking for work. And a lot of that some of that can be traced back to the pandemic, but it goes as far back as 2012, when companies began to slowly tighten up and to reduce unnecessary levels of leadership so that they could be more responsive. Andy Jassy, I wrote this in our newsletter this morning, Guiding Your Career Report on Substack, and it'll be posted Monday on LinkedIn. If you're not a paid subscriber, it'll be on LinkedIn free on Monday. But basically, Andy Jassy is concerned because there's too many meetings, then the decision process is getting bloated, and it's now a big bureaucracy. They used to be a company that was like a startup. It really made quick decisions, and they kept things lean and mean. Now he has 300,000 people in his administrative level out of 1.5 million. A lot of those people are in the warehouses and distribution, but that's a lot of people. And so let's see if anybody, okay, I was thinking it was a question. It was one of those political things. God. Open enrollment season with Medicare and political season, there's more garbage coming into your phone than you can imagine. So he's going to start flattening the organization, which means layoffs. And he's also going to cut out bureaucracy, which will also mean some layoffs. Now, people say, well, how many are you talking about? Well, out of them, 300,000 administrative employees. If he can cut 10%, that's a lot of people. Okay. And they probably need to cut between 5 and 10%. The last time they did a big layoff was in 23, extended into early 24. They laid off 27,000 people. 27,000 people over about a 4 to 5 or 6 month range. And so that's fewer jobs for people to apply for and more people in the market looking for work. So it's a very competitive situation now, and you really have to be prepared when you're in a job search. You can't just show up and submit a resume and not do any special customization to it and then show up to try to answer questions and think that's enough because you have a lot of experience. It's amazing how many candidates can quickly convince themselves that they are the best person for the job, and they're not looking at themselves or their resume critically. So let's move on. I think I've sort of lost point there, but what is it? Let's see. We've done that. There are many. I'm trying to pick out some good ones. What is the best way to network? Well, you've got some great tools. Okay. LinkedIn, which is not really technically a networking tool, it can help you network, but don't rely on it. Why? Because networking really is at its best when those contacts become relationships. Now, they don't have to be deep best friend relationships or deep intimate relationships, but there must be a level of confidence and knowledge about one another. And when you're networking, it's not about you. It's about helping somebody else. And it always happens. If you're really focused on them, it'll come back in blessings to you. So that's, you use LinkedIn to do research. Let's say you're thinking about, okay, man, our company is not, our sales are down. We've got a pretty big head count. That's a big time hint that you're probably going to have a layoff. And so somebody says, I need to start thinking about what's my next move in my career. And so they started looking, sat down with their wife and said, look, I'm not sure it's going to happen, but if it does, where do we want to be next? Well, the wife wants to stay there, but this is a town of 100,000 people and there's very few of those jobs available. A relocation is probably mandatory. So you sit down with your spouse or your partner and look at where you want to go. And then after you look at those geographic areas, you identify employers that you think would align with your interest and that you know something about, and you have to do your homework. Once you do that piece of the work, then you start going on LinkedIn and looking for people who work in those organizations or who work in that industry in that market and start trying to connect with them. And you want to keep your LinkedIn network or your career network aligned with your plan. If it's just willy-nilly and you got a lot of people connected on the LA West Coast, but you have no desire to go there, that's not a real productive network, more than likely. So align your networking with the number, your plans where you want to go, which suggests very strongly that you need to have a career plan. If you don't have a written career plan, you're going to end up like what Yogi Berra used to say. If you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else, and you probably won't like it. So, have a plan, develop a network that supports that plan, and you'll be much better off with your career. We're going to go through a long period of instability where you have some layoffs, and then you're going to have the economy. I mean, the economy is growing right now. Inflation is down. Now, food prices and a lot of other things are high, so everybody thinks the economy is bad, and that's human nature. But if you look at the fundamentals of the economy, it's in pretty good shape. Yeah, really, they've had 44 months of record they 44 months of uninterrupted employment, which is pretty good. I think Obama had 75 months, but was in office, for 8 years. So the economy is at the core is healthy. There are segments of it that people are really distressed by: high interest rates, which is natural when you're trying to get inflation under control. And it was a global pandemic-induced inflation cycle. But uninterrupted job growth doesn't last forever. I don't care who the president is. I don't care what they said in the campaign. They don't control that. They don't control that. And so, employment's going to probably slow down. It's already beginning, I think, to show some signs of that happening. The consumer's demand is slipping somewhat. Some of the big freight airlines have already done layoffs because they're not seeing the record amount of freight traffic they did during the pandemic. And Amazon is probably going to do, as I said earlier, some layoffs because their traffic is down. People are being a little bit more circumspect now regarding their spend. So you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan that's tied to your network, and that's the best way to do networking. LinkedIn can give you the names, but it's going to be that personal interaction that makes a difference whether you build a relationship. A good, robust network between 125 and 150 people is ideal. And people say, well, God, that doesn't sound like a lot. Well, yeah, but think about what the purpose of the network is. It's to help each other with your careers. And if you've got 16,000 people, there's no way you can manage that number of people and build relationships. And probably a lot of those people are just people who want to sell you something that doesn't work and that you don't need. So be targeted with your networking. Okay, what is the best answer for tell me about yourself? I can tell you what not to do. First of all, do not kind of summarize your resume. They got your resume, okay? Number two, do not do a historical walkthrough of your life, okay? There's some things you want to share about yourself, but that's not the point. When they say, tell me about yourself, what they're really asking you is, why should we hire you? What value can you bring to our organization? What's your history here? And you just can't answer that question off the top of your head unless you are an exceptional extemporaneous speaker. And a lot of people think they are, and most people are not. Okay, I've interviewed over 3,000 people in my search career, and I can tell you that for every person that thought they were a good interview, probably 49 of them were not. Okay, they might have been good or fair, but they weren't a great interview. And it's because people don't have that much experience. So, you just really have to perfect your interviewing skills, and you have to be able to tell your story in a meaningful way so that people can see, they can become engaged. They can say, oh, wow, this person's pretty cool, because people get hired based on their qualifications and their skills. But do they like you? Do they trust you? And then can you help trigger their decision to hire you? That's what it's all about now. It's changed dramatically in the last 5 years. And if you look back over the last 15 years, it is night and day. So if you hadn't been in the job market in a while, my best advice, and I don't mean this to sound self-serving, but you better get a career coach and somebody who can help you navigate the changes in terms of from your resume all the way through how you do an interview today, because this is not about answering questions. This is about selling your value and connecting the dots for the client so they can see that you have the skills. If you sit back and just don't do that, answer the questions completely and hope that the client's going to figure out, do the math that you're the best qualified person, guess what? They won't. The best qualified person who takes that approach only gets the job about 30% of the time, 35% of the time. Who gets the job? Well, it's the qualified person, but it's the one who did the best job communicating their value. So if you're struggling with that, we can help you. Okay, we can help you. I've taught the interviewing course for a large global professional association for more than 10 years. And so we can really help you sell your value. What is an applicant tracking system, and what the heck does it do? Well, It's the bane of a lot of people's existence. Applicant tracking systems, you first begin to see them introduced into the talent acquisition process in the mid to late 1990s. Big companies had a lot of resources committed to keeping their companies staffed. And they also had a problem with recruiters being human beings with biases and other things. And so they put that in there. And it's basically a computer program that allows them to tie an algorithm to a specific job search summary, and it evaluates. So if you apply for a senior VP of operations, it's going to read it for that, and it knows what the summary says, and it knows how many years they're looking for. They know what credentials they're looking for. So if you have 75% of what they're looking for, you're probably not going to get called. If you have 80% or 85%, you're probably not going to get called because the market's really competitive. You got to probably be in the 90 to 95% range. In the old days, a recruiter, a human being, you could submit it to them and hope that something would work out. But with computers making the initial screening and sourcing, the computers don't understand the concept of something may work out. They're looking at it with a computer algorithm, and it's pretty black and white. Now, earlier, I got off the point. I lost my train of thought. It's Friday. It's been a long week. Let me go back and pick up another one. That is discrimination. Racial discrimination is still big time. Age discrimination is epic proportions. It happens every day. It is probably, believe it or not, one of the most common forms of discrimination in the workplace. But there's something else that's becoming up more and more, and it really relates to the fact that the market now at the executive and management level is so competitive, and that is your appearance. And you can say, man, that's illegal. Yeah, so is it race discrimination, and so is age discrimination, but it happens every day of every week. And guess what? It's hard to prove. Okay, they didn't hire me because they thought I was too fat. Well, that's a really tough case to prove. And so a lot of people just simply don't follow up. They may be discriminated against. Some are oblivious to it. But let me tell you something you need to pay attention to. Please pay attention to this. If you are not physically fit, if you are not, if you don't look good, if you don't look healthy, if you've gained too much weight, and sitting at home looking for a job is really stressful. And I know it's hard to pass that refrigerator without opening it up to get some comfort food. Please, here's what you must do. You've got to get yourself in physical shape, because otherwise, in this competitive market, people will make a decision to eliminate you based on the way you look. So if you're 50 pounds overweight or 75 pounds overweight, the chances are, unless you are just absolutely the most brilliant person they've ever seen, they're not going to hire you. And they're going to say, we're going in a different direction. Now, everybody says, well, I just can't lose weight. That's bogus. Unless some doctor has said, you're never going to lose weight because you have this condition. Just because you've gone on diets and not lost weight, you've probably done it the wrong way. So we're going to be adding to our services some dietary consults so people can get healthy and be at their fighting weight, so to speak. Bonnie Barabee, who is a respected national dietitian and who used to run dietetics at Memorial Hermann, we're going to joint venture some things, and that's still under the development. Look for an interview we're going to be doing with her shortly in the next couple of weeks. But she is really great. And we're not here to beat people up. What we're here to do is help you be the best person you can be. Several years ago, I was in the hill country of Texas. I had gained a lot of weight because I was traveling, and I was about 273 pounds. Now I'm a little over 6 feet. So you could tell I'd gained weight. You could tell I was overweight, but it wasn't just belly flop over the belt. Okay, not to put too fine a point on it. And I had a big relationship with the chair of the board. I had a relationship with the retiring the CEO, who actually was very predisposed to recommend me. But during my presentation, I didn't realize it, but there were 3 physicians on the board. And one of them said, so if you die, what's going to happen to the search? I said, well, I have people backing me up, and but I'm in good health. And the guy said, well, you don't look healthy. And I didn't know he was a doctor. Okay. And that was probably, I'd been suffering from sciatica. And, I did not feel top form. And I lost the deal because they were concerned about my health. I didn't look healthy. I was a little bit overweight. And guess what? In January of 2022, this happened in 2021. In January 2022, I had open heart surgery because a main artery in my heart was 75% occluded. If I hadn't had that surgery, and it's just lucky that I had it before I had the artery closed, or I would have died. And probably I would have, if it happened in the hospital, I probably would have died. And I think they refer to it as the widowmaker. But that's a real example. And it was a shocking example for me. And so now I am not obsessed with my weight, but I'm on the Mediterranean diet. I watch what I eat. I try to stay away from too many snacks. I stay away from a lot of salty things like the love of my life, potato chips, or salty smoked nuts and things like this. I still have my martinis most nights, or at least several times a week. But I'm now on a regimen of antistatins and blood thinners and all this other stuff so that I can extend my life. And I've lost weight, and I then took some medication that put it back on, and I'm taking it off again. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is, if you need to lose weight, there's a way to do it. It takes discipline, it takes exercise, and it takes eating the right foods. Hot flash, chicken fried steak and cream gravy, and French fries, a popular staple in smaller, all across Texas. That is not going to help you lose weight. Eating a hamburger 2 or 3 times a week is not going to help you lose weight. You can still enjoy the foods you love. Just pay attention what you're eating. Eat more fish, eat more chicken, eat more vegetables and beans and things like this that are healthy for you. And there are some diets that you can get on and really be successful. One of Bonnie's colleagues has lost 50 pounds just by eating earlier in the evening and watching what she eats. That's it. She works, she does do some jogging, she goes to the gym and works out, but she doesn't it's not beat herself into the ground with cardio. So, that's becoming a big issue. I had, in my last 6 months of being a recruiter, I had an executive, CEO, look up at me and he said, look, I'm looking for this. It was a clinical product line manager. And he said, I am not hiring by the pound. Now, I got to tell you, being an old newspaper reporter, I thought I'd heard everything. That kind of shocked me. It really kind of shocked me. But I understand where he's coming from. He wants somebody that's going to present well. And is somebody who's, if they present well, if they're healthy, if they've got energy. He felt like those were all things that had to happen because part of the service line responsibility was cardiology. And, his physicians were particularly interested in healthy programs. So that was, it was not written, but that was one of the charges that I was given is find somebody that is healthy, has energy, and can do the job. And so, I saw a great, unbelievably talented service line manager who was probably 200 pounds overweight. Had trouble getting up and down the stairs. He was just short of breath all the time. And he lost out on 2 or 3 good jobs because of his appearance. So pay attention to that. Don't get your feelings hurt. Just don't get your feelings hurt, get yourself in shape. Watch for some programming that we're going to provide to help you in that direction. Okay. I hear applying online is inefficient. Why is that? It makes sense that if I can apply for jobs when it's convenient for me, why is that inefficient? Well, let's talk about that. Okay, yes, when you apply online, you can apply at 2 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, but applying online, it doesn't matter. It's not a time-sensitive issue. It's a process problem. It's not a time problem. It's a process problem. So here's what you have to be ready to do if you're going to go with online applications. Number one, if you don't meet 90 to 95% of the things they're asking for, don't waste your time applying because there's going to be 200 or 300 people applying for the same job And if they're more qualified, you're not even going to get a call back. Okay. You're just going to hear crickets. The second thing I want to tell you is that if you're going to apply for a job, if you say, okay, I'm 90% there, you got, and be honest with yourself, because looking for a job is going to take longer now, and you can't afford to waste time on doing all the customization and all the work you have to do to submit an application for something you don't have a chance of getting. So be honest with yourself. And when you get ready, you look at the job, then download it and start looking for the keywords and phrases: robust, deep understanding, things like that. And you want to use those words to apply, as it applies to your skills, to your knowledge, that sort of thing. Use their keywords anytime you can. We have a keyword chart worksheet that you can download. And it'll help you. And if you've got questions, you can go to my webpage at john@johngself.com. Go to the bottom of the page, and there's a Talk to John icon. Click that, and you can set up a free 30-minute telephone call or a Zoom call. We're happy to kind of give you some guidance there. But with all the competition now, you've got to customize your resume. If you send generic resumes, you will not get picked. Even if your resume is customized, now don't get depressed by this number, only 2 to 3 out of 10 or 15 are ever seen by a human. The recruiter's using the algorithm, and it kicks you out. Now, so that's why online is inefficient, because you have to spend so much time working at it, and then probably 7 or 8 times in 10, you'll never hear anything from the employer. Because the employer doesn't even know who's applying unless they go look at the ATS log, and I don't know anybody that does that. So the other thing I want to tell you is that the best way to get into an organization is bypass the bots, bypass the ATS. Now, you may have to submit your resume later on ATS, but to get it in their system. But if you have somebody a connection that knows you and knows your track record, and says, look, I know Craig James over at this organization, and he's running this search. It's a really good job. They haven't posted it, but it pays about $250, plus bonus. You would be perfect for it. Can I get a resume and send it to him? Yes. Why? Because instead of having odds of 150 to 1 or 200 to 1, your odds now have improved to 32 to 1. That's a huge improvement. Is it still competitive as hell? God, yes, it is. But then if you have a recruiter put you in, it's 32 to 1. But if a trusted resource for the hospital or the manufacturing company or the services company, if a trusted resource recommends you, a trusted resource to that organization, your chances improve to 16 to 1. Now, 16 to 1 is probably the best odds you're going to get. That's probably the best odds you're going to get. Now, that's not in concrete, but it's setting up fast. So, look to build a network. That time and effort that you build that network is equity in your career. It's going to pay dividends just like equity in your house. So we've got, if you're interested in taking some courses on this, we have some really reasonably priced programs to become a member of our Your Career community. We have probably 5 or 6 hours of online courses. You can join. I think you have an enrollment fee, and then I think it's $89 a month. And it's no contract, and you can drop out anytime you want to. So that's a great way. Plus, then right now you still have open access to our group coaching sessions every week, but that's going to close down as soon as we build our membership up. So please, start trying to understand how the market's changing, what you have to do to be more efficient, how the process works, because if you don't, you're just going to get discouraged. And it's probably going to take you 50 to 75 applications to get 1 or 2 interviews. And that's been very, very common these days. I've had some senior executives that had been very successful in their career, but they had a prolonged unemployment stretch, and they were running out of some money. I mean, they were getting down to the bare end of their retirement plan. And they were, last year, I had a couple of people right before Christmas that were scared to death they would be homeless. Okay, that's an illustration of how competitive this market is. Now, if you have a network, that makes it easier for you. Don't not invest the time there. because you're going to need all the help you can get. Okay, I'm going to finish it up now. We're a little over time, but I had a short tenure with a company. It was a mistake on my part. Okay. I did not ask the right questions of the interviewer. That's an important point we'll talk about next week, hopefully. Do I have to put that on my resume? Okay. If you are an employee and you were there for several months, if a company does a background check, they're going to find that. And then they're going to say, why didn't you tell us about that? Now, people say, well, God, if I tell them about it, it'll get me eliminated. No, not necessarily. If you went in on the CEO and jumped on his desk and cursed him out, yeah, that might hurt you. But most people don't do silly stuff like that. So here's what you do. Say, and they'll say, why was this tenure so short? Thank you for asking that. Let me tell you, I made a decision and I made a mistake. I didn't ask the right questions. And when I started to work there, within 2 to 3 weeks, I realized that I did not fit and that the information I was given didn't fully align with what I was being asked to do. And that's my fault because I didn't ask the right questions. But I really learned that was a very painful mistake, and I really learned from it. And that's probably why you're going to hear me ask more questions today. And then smile. Everybody makes mistakes. Okay. Don't be resistant to talk about your negatives or your mistakes. Everybody has them. Everybody does. If you're resistant to admit to a mistake or admit to a weakness, you're showing that you're emotionally a little bit suspect. You want to come across as somebody who's emotionally secure, emotionally intelligent, and there's nothing wrong with having weaknesses. We all do. Maybe next week we can talk about how to handle that in a longer form interview. Now, next Tuesday, we're going to have office hours at 12 noon Central Time on Tuesday. And then Wednesday at 4 o'clock, we have 12 o'clock on Tuesday, lunch and learn. 4 o'clock on Wednesday, we have office hours. And I'm just adjusting to the new fall schedule. Please forgive me. Okay. So I hope this has been helpful information to you. If you have any more questions, you can submit an email online to john@johngself.com. It's really tight out there. It's really, really competitive out there. And so it's really important to have a plan and be disciplined. Be disciplined. Know where you want to go and stay focused on that, because there's a lot of people out there that are just bumping off against the walls, like a beach ball being bounced around in a baseball stadium doing the 7th inning stretch. Don't let that be you. Have a plan, start focusing on the people that can help you, and work the plan. If you have any other questions, schedule a call with me at johngself.com, and the icon's at the bottom of the page. I want to thank you all for being with us today. I hope you would come back next Friday where we'll be doing your career questions and Ask the Recruiter.